Okay, hello.
Yeah, good
Hello,
morning. Good morning.
Fisher.
Yeah,
Good morning, good afternoon there.
Yeah.
I've been listening to some of the presentations, a great,
Yeah.
great event. And I want to also, first and foremost, congratulate you again with GO-TKM and, as an organization and as a successful forum that has been the first one. And I'm very happy to participating both in the global forum and also in this conference and contributing in any way that I can. So let me share my screen. So can you see my screen now?
Yes, maybe put in the play mode. Yeah.
Yes, presentation.
Right. Yeah.
So thank you again, and as Fisher kindly mentioned, today we're going to talk about tacit knowledge transmission as a follow-up on the extraction and the continuous process together with extraction, but enabled in a more practical way using an end-to-end knowledge-first customer-centric digital transformation. I admit that it is a long title, but we're going to find out, why all these different elements. And throughout the presentation, the organizing committee has been very kind and put the Chinese translation, so I cannot take credit for that. As Fisher mentioned to you, my name is Kian Abolfazlian. I am a global leader for data transformation for one of our business clusters at Philips Healthcare. But before that, the past 20 plus years, actually 23 years, I have been a trusted advisor for board of directors, C-suite, senior stakeholders, government officials, ministers in knowledge-intensive organization across Europe, Americas, and Asia. And I have specialized in working with design and delivery of knowledge extraction and transmission programs, enabled with a tool that has been in the focus of many organization, knowledge intensive organization, basically digital transformation, but with a knowledge first focus. And I've been doing this for public and private sectors. I've also, been involved to designing national ICT, AI, and knowledge strategies for countries, and the projects which are organized and sponsored by World Bank, Inter-American Development Bank, UNDP, EU Commission, as Fisher mentioned. And I have a passion, and we're going to look into it that as an enabler for knowledge transfer for people literate technologies. So before anything, and as Fisher mentioned, I actually am very fond of working with best practices, giving things that people can use in their daily life. And that's actually something that, I hope that we can achieve after this presentation and afterwards, that you can take a couple of best practices that you can use in your organization. And the first one is that anything you do with knowledge, because of its importance, would require change. And change is a very difficult structure. It's something that, everybody wants. But when you ask them who wants to change themselves, not so many. And when you even ask them, they have to lead the change, then usually they disappear. So be clear about that it is not something simple when you work with, specifically with the knowledge and the change that is involved in that. So you have to set your vision first. But then again, why knowledge first? Because arguably the only asset any organization has is its tacit knowledge asset. And here I'm using a little bit more a generic way of looking at tacit knowledge, which is basically ability to perform a specific task in a specific context to achieve a specific goal. That process we are looking at. Anything you have in your organization, any product, any services, any processes, structures, even people you hire, the way your buildings or anything of that, they are all realization of your new unique knowledge assets. And those things are existing with the sole purpose of being using, creating, sharing, and maintaining knowledge assets in your organization. Anything you find in your organization and anything of your product and services, that's their sole purpose. And therefore, again, the concept of what we are talking about here, tacit knowledge at core of it, and therefore, that why tacit knowledge is so important. So again, when we talk about tacit knowledge, we are talking about the ability to perform a specific task in a specific context to achieve a specific goal. It could look a little bit too difficult to work with. But there are structures. We are not going to have time to go into how we can structure a work or organize work with this. Look into different aspects, different factors that contribute to tacit knowledge, but it is there, it is documented. There are a lot of best practices around that. And, anytime you can contact me and we can talk about it. And I hope that it would be also part of what we were working on in the global tacit knowledge management forum. The other thing that is very important, I think, some of the presenters also talk about, when we talk about the digital transformation, you have to also talk about the data transformation, and you need to have a data-driven point of view. The processes that are behind that, I've even defined the tacit knowledge based on that process of being able to do a specific task in a specific context to achieve a specific goal. So there are processes, and they are enabled using the data, people, and technology around this. So that data drivenness is one of the things that you have to actually have as your point of focus. Then you have to be customer-centric. You do not have a generic way of extracting knowledge just for the knowledge sake. No, you are actually, as an organization, providing a service, providing a solution. So you have to have the customer-centric and the customer-first visioning behind that. You have to, usually when we talk about knowledge, you have to go from the product to a solution point of view. You have to go from the most advanced to most adequate point of view. All these things are customer-first thinking. You're especially after the pandemic, and for countries that are still affected by that, the customers became more and more digital first. They want things at the right time, right place, with the right message. Then you need to be able to do the transmission of the knowledge in a more structured way. You need to use new findings like behavioral economics, choice architecture, to be able to enable that kind of transmission of knowledge. And anything you do, you have to start with augmentation first. So the sole purpose of doing the knowledge transfer is to augmenting the intelligence, augmenting the competencies of the employees within your organizations. The other presenters, they were talking about the reduction of the time, onboarding, performing tasks. All these things are done using the augmentation of the competencies of the people who joined your company newly, or they want to transfer from one area to the other, take over other people after their offboarding. All these things, you need to have the augmentation first. And I'm mentioning this because in many of the organizational programs I have seen and have been advised to recuperate, the sole problem has been that people are very fast to go from nothing to automation. And that is not where you get the best effect or best benefits of knowledge transfer. It is when you're working with augmentation. That's where you get 80+% of your benefits, and these are documented. When you talk about automation, we actually talk about processes that are going to replace, and there you are going to moving towards what traditionally has been talked about as knowledge extraction for the purpose of explicit knowledge transfer. So These are the things that are usually very, very difficult. They are very at the end level of the maturations, and I mean, at the level that we are working usually with things that are high volume, low complexity. We are working with 1 second rule. So basically anything that a human being can do in 1 second should be automated. So these are not the places to start. We have to start with augmentation. Towards now the knowledge first customer-centric digital transformation, which is that conscious use of digital solutioning to work in a continuous way between the transform and optimize. It's not only transformation, it's not only up to digital optimization, it is a continuous feedback loop that you have from transform to optimization of your organization to deliver their strategic goals based on a knowledge first customer-centric vision. And in that, again, we are talking about processes. I mean, the other representatives, they were talking about, for instance, I think I answered the questions at the end of it. I have already received some questions, so let's wait with the questions at the end of the presentation. So the processes are at the soul of any type of knowledge transfer. But again, a lot of organizations, when they talk about doing using technology or using any type of digital transformation, digital first solutioning to do that kind of transfer around knowledge, they start with a lean optimization of their processes, and they throw technologies at different paths, trying to automate, let's say, those steps in their processes. And it's not enough, it's not good enough, because you end up not using all the capacity that you can get from a digital first solutioning towards that kind of optimization and then those kind of knowledge transfer that you're after. Because again, if you do that, it's like the analogy would be that you are giving a bad driver a much faster car. It doesn't help with their competency or capability to drive a car. They could actually endanger their lives, and in an organization case would be basically a downturn. So examples of those technologies is that, and we're going to see actually in a specific example how to do that. There are like simple solutions there. You have simple software robots, you can build. There are basically automation of specific tasks in your organization. Here I have given them some names, to make them a little bit more anthropomorphic, but to be able to relate to. But you can actually have them by a single purpose or a special purpose, a special persona, cognitive bots. And they can have different things from those that are specialized in transfer or communicate specific parts, specific information or bits to specific people based on their profile at the right time, right place, with the right message. They could be the ones that are actually good at finding out based on whatever you have in hand to do, to find in your knowledge assets what has been done before, what are the best practices, and before you work on it in a pool way of using pool technologies, searching for it, they come with to you with the push technology at the right time. So it becomes a much more just-in-time intelligence way of working with knowledge transfer. And you can see, I think, the presentation would be shared so you can yourself look at the different kinds. But the usage is basically this. If you look at the simple process that, you can have in your organization, you want to authorize a project, and then basically you have to fill a template, what you see in the red box at the bottom of the presentation of this slide. They are usually, but there are so many different things that can be enabled using technology and in a much more effective way. So basically, when you start with these things, you can have a lot of information about that, the type of the person who's going to be working with it, what type of client it is for, what is the cases that we have been already working on. All these things are available for you. So at the right time, you can actually bring that attention of the person who should start working with the authorization of this. We are talking about, I have done a complete comprehensive knowledge management projects and knowledge digital transformation, knowledge first digital transformation for companies as knowledge intensive as law firms even, I mean, and they can use these kind of things, so it is not something a specific purpose. You can actually use it in any type of knowledge intensive organization. So you can actually have that at the right time, and you're bringing them back, I mean, to the level that, for instance, if you have a new employee coming in, when the onboarding could be something between 3 to 6 months with a lot of costs for you. I have examples of the companies that had those months have been reduced to days, even 1 day when it comes to it. So they actually can become capable of working without going through the whole thing of the knowledge extraction for the explicit knowledge. No, actually hands-on, when they are working with it, they are using the knowledge which is within the encapsulated within their organization. And it's not only the processes, because we usually talk a lot about the process. It could be many other things. As I mentioned, there are a lot of technologies available nowadays that you can use to enable that kind of transfer. So here you have a complete other example. Many of you know of smart spaces, of smart buildings, so you basically, when you get into the building, there is a centralized access control for you, so you can even have a digital version of a concierge that, using the lights on the corridors, helping you, to get to the specific room you have to be. You do not have access where you don't need to be. So everything done centralized. But at the same time that it is very good, so you are actually bringing that kind of knowledge in play and use different type of digital solutioning around that to transfer it, to actually from your organization to the building, to enable the effective way of the use of your resources. But at the same time, there could be many other things that could happen. For instance, if you are working in a hospital with the biohazard areas, or you're working in a building which is in a distress context, let's say building fire, and you need to do the evacuation. If you do these kind of centralized things, that, that's the typical way of doing explicit knowledge extraction, that you have this set of rules, and, you have decided that, who should have access to which door, etc., etc. Then, you can have a problem, because, if you have access to open a door where outside of it, you can actually, endanger yourself, or open a door where, you enter a biohazard in a hospital. So having that kind of distributed identity management that is now also available using other type of technologies, like distributed ledger technologies. You may know of them as like, Bitcoin, and blockchain, and or IOTA Tangle, etc. But they can actually be used with these kind of things. So what it is important is that you have to use all the available technologies to do the enablements. You have to think out of the box. You can even look at the people as IoT devices, edge agents. What is important is that you have to do convergence of all these things to enable that smooth transfer of the knowledge, and specifically knowledge that you cannot explain. You only can work with it when you are in the process, when you are in interaction. So in conclusion, you have to set your vision right. You have to have a knowledge first point of view when you work with the digital transformation to do the knowledge transfer in your organization. You have to look at your customers first and have a data-driven point of view. Focus on augmentation and use that in a knowledge-first customer-centric digital transformation. And go from being, doing the optimization and using any type of digital solution to a digitalized lean technology, using a convergence of anything available around you. So I hope that it was at least some points that you can use in your daily life, and you are welcome to connect to me, connect with me, on LinkedIn or any other using the forum. And I would be happy to answer some questions now.
Thank you, Kim. So thank you, Kim, for your sharing. So this is very good sharing. Also, again, any questions from our audience? Since we have a few minutes open to everyone. So any questions?
I think I was some question in the Q&A. Says, I'm very curious to know what's the purpose of all those colorful pictures in the presentation materials. Well, those pictures, actually, this is one of the things that, those pictures are all created by an AI algorithm. They are just basically taking the words from my presentation and converting them to pictures. So it's like, that is a way to show also that somebody else, somebody else's creativity that, I get access to and use in my purpose without them needing to write down the explicit rules or explicit knowledge of how to be creative. I can actually also access that, using that algorithm. So that's the purpose of that, But thank you for asking the question.
Thank you. So in that case, let's to see any other question from our audience, or if not, maybe we can just stop here. So thank you, Kim, for your sharing. So we can take a